My name is Lili Jia. I'm a senior researcher at engineering department at the University of Cambridge. So my research focuses on incentivizing behavior changes towards health and sustainability.
Okay. I'm Jean Adams. I work in the Centre for Diet and Activity Research, which is part of the MRC Epidemiology Unit. And my work focuses on dietary public health. I'm interested in how we can change environments to help people eat better.
And I'm Marie Louise Stig Sørensen, and I work in the Department of Archaeology. And doing my work, I've been excavating food from thousands of years old, and also work in heritage, where we're interested in the important food as a part of identity.
So I have done quite a lot of research on cooking and whether people are losing their cooking skills, or the relationship between people's ability to cook and their propensity to do that, and how healthy their diet is. And I often start presentations by saying that, or declaring that I enjoy cooking, and I do. But one of the interesting things I think for me is that many people tell me that they learned to cook from their mother, but I didn't. My mother was a hopeless cook, and I think that she was a hopeless cook by design. So yeah. She was a doctor. She trained in the 1960s, so that was not a usual thing for a woman to be then. And on reflection, I think that she was probably declaring that she was not the sort of woman who stayed home and cooked, and so she made a point of not knowing how to cook, and it sort of facilitated the lifestyle she wanted to have access to lots of processed food. And my mum often served, for instance, Angel Delight. I don't know if either of you know what that is.
I think I know what it is, but I've never had it yet.
It's lovely. So it's a dried pudding mix that you mix with milk, and you get a kind of a creamy flavoured pudding.
Yeah.
But she relied a lot on things like that, on packets, to produce what might have been homemade food, but in fact came from a packet. But that allowed her to be the sort of woman that her brand of feminism dictated, and I suspect that she probably looked down on women who knew how to cook, and might have been a bit sad, but I spend my weekends cooking. But I think that seems to me interesting that there's a whole range of foods that allowed women to get out of the kitchen, and we would think of that as a good thing, I think, maybe, that provided that choice for them.
So I'm older than you, so my mother was born in the 1920, and she stopped working when she had children. And she wasn't interested in cooking. So she didn't, all my three siblings all cook. I don't cook that much. But I think it was not so much processed food, it was actually the freezer which made a huge difference. Because then you could make things in big portions, and you could do it once, and so it changed that routine of having to do it every day and think about it every day. And my mother always wanted to do lots of different things, so she wasn't interested in cooking. But I think it was the freezer which made a big difference. And when did the freezers become more common? Is that from the 60s onwards?
We had a big chest freezer when I was growing up in the 80s,
yeah. I think that and they might slightly have replaced the tin food.
Yes.
In terms, and I think it came with a notion of freshness, even that it was frozen.
Yes.
Because the food itself didn't have to be processed in order to go into the freezer. It just had to be freezed.
And in fact, you can freeze, as you've described, you can freeze the food that you've made yourself. So it could be homemade or homegrown.
Yeah. And so that came in as a different there. But it is I think it's enormously interesting about the expectation about women's work and how they try to liberate themselves in terms of those expectations and developing attitude towards your cooking, whether you thought it wasn't important, or just something you got rid of, or whether it's something you know, when you mentally got rid of it, or you got rid of it through processed food, or how you managed to reduce that expectation that was your life worth, was to cook.
Yeah, but interesting that presumably all these innovations in food primarily came from men, because they were the people who had the time and the education to develop them, and yet the benefits often to women.
So you get the washing machine, the vacuum cleaner, the freezer. The tin food actually developed for the army, so they didn't first develop for women, but there was a lot of other way of processing. I think the freezer was directly for women's work, so there was a lot of technology for the home
yeah.
to give. And are they all post Second World War? I think they're all post Second World War. And about
probably the kind of gross use of them, mass production.
And that freed up women's labour.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. But combined with the experience of the Second World War, where women were doing a lot of work outside the home anyhow.
And making possible to run a family and still do other things.
Yeah.